Welcome everybody to a brand spanking new episode of RODANE. A very special occasion here. We are kicking it off with a brand new concept right here in front of your eyes or ears or whatever. We are doing the road to the SNYDER Cut. So as you know, HBO Max commissioned or Warner Brothers commissioned a brand new cut of the movie Justice League, which is Justice League, the SNYDER Cut. And in anticipation to the release of this movie, we are going to do all of Zack Snyder's contributions to the DC extended cinematic universe. Starting with his sophomore debut, the 2013 movie Man of Steel. But before we get into that, I would like to introduce my very special co-host, the jettisoned son of Duckworld. We will rise behind him, we will fall, but one day we may join him in the sun. Daniel.
What's up, quackers?
That was pretty good.
I mean, it's funny that you're doing that one and we're doing DC because Marvel has a duck character. So yeah, we are in anticipation, I guess.
We were like, we don't have anything else better lined up.
Yeah, and we thought it was going to be a fun little series to go through Zack Snyder's contributions to the DC universe, or whatever they're calling it this week, in lead up to the Snyder Cut coming out in March?
Question mark?
Yeah, March 18th. That's what the new trailer said.
It might change by the time we release this, but
who knows? But we will do it when it comes out. So yeah, we're starting with 2013's Man of Steel, directed as stated by Zack Snyder and written by David S. Goyer.
He's as Goyer as they come.
Indeed. With story contribution by Christopher Nolan, because this, of course, came right after his Batman trilogy, and this was very much a way of rebooting Superman in that kind of style, in a way.
I can confirm this. He was in one photo of the behind-the-scenes footage.
Yeah.
One photo.
we can probably get into some of the things that he doesn't agree with this movie, but to give a quick plot summary before we go into sort of talking deeper about the movie. I mean, we're going to talk about the movie sort of point to point, like going through the chronology of the movie. But in summary, Man of Steel it's the origin story of Superman. We all know it. It's, Krypton goes to hell, he gets sent to Earth, he grows up in Kansas, and then he becomes Superman. And then, to add a little bit of a difference from the Donner movies, Zod crashes the party. And yeah, it's Clark Kent trying to figure out who and what he is, and becoming, in the end, Superman and saving the day. And ruining a city.
Da-da-da-da.
So we start the movie on Krypton in a very, very long sequence that is like 20 minutes of this 2-hour and 20-minute movie.
Yeah, it is very long.
Yeah, I didn't actually remember this movie being that long. I was like, I was sitting down to rewatch it, and I was like, oh, this movie's gonna be like an hour and a half, and then I saw this 2 hours and 20. I was like, holy shit, what the fuck happened?
Yes. So, what did you think about the sort of Krypton sequence in general, like the whole thing?
It's funny, I haven't rewatched this movie. Like, let's just be fair, we've watched all of the Snyder movies, except of course the Snyder Cut, because it's not out yet.
Did you say the Snyder Cuss?
Yeah, sorry, the Snyder Cut, because it's not out yet. And it's funny going back and rewatching Man of Steel, because I almost was like, wait, why couldn't we have gotten this movie instead? Because there was a part of me that was like, I kind of like this Krypton sequence. It's dumb and it's way too long, but I kind of loved it in a way. In a like, oh, this is kind of fun way.
I liked it. I think I like it more because I watched all of the behind the scenes footage.
Oh yeah, for those unaware, which is all of you, Steven has been bombarding me with a lot of behind the scenes footage, which is hilarious.
I do admire how much some of the production staff has worked on figuring out how to portray Krypton.
Yeah, and I like the look of Krypton. Some of it.
What they were going for, I don't think it's all very apparent because Zack Snyder is a terrible director. But what they were going for is a techno-organic feel, and also portraying a civilization that is on its dying breath.
Yeah, it's very H.R. Giger.
Yeah, in terms of there's a lot of bone structure.
Yeah.
A lot of hollowed elements, essentially kind of portraying almost like if the planet was like a corpse.
Yeah.
And it's further explained a bit later on in the movie by Russell Crowe OS.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
That they were once a colonial planet.
They were stretching across the stars, and then they forgot to keep doing that, and then they slowly died, and then Krypton, of course, dies.
Yeah. So what they did is that they started mining more and more of their home planet's resources.
Yeah.
And they exhausted them, and then they started mining the core of the planet for resources.
That becomes unstable, and that is kind of where we're dropped into the movie, where Krypton has basically like hours to go. And
yeah, well, that's the classic plot of the Superman origin, is that Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe, he's the one scientist, the one singular scientist who believes that the world is about to end because of the mining of the planet's core, whereas everybody else doesn't. Well, actually, I think General Zod, played by Michael Shannon, like you said, also agrees with him. I don't think he understands exactly the gravity of the situation, but I think from his actions we can at least deduce that he at least agrees with Jor-El in terms of, we need to stop the current rule because it's unhealthy for the planet.
Yeah, and he has a very eugenics way of thinking about it, because one of the changes to, I don't actually know if this is in the original Superman mythos, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, if you know. But in this version of Krypton, everyone is bred in a way. It's kind of it's like everyone is.
They're made out of a piece of bread.
No, they're bred. They're like grown humans.
Jor-El is like, I am a piece of bread, Zod, and so are you.
He does look a bit like garlic bread in this movie.
And then General Zod's like, I am toast.
But yeah, like every person on Krypton is like a grown human, and they're grown into their role. So you can be chosen as like, okay, this one here will be a leader, this one will be a soldier, and then you're like predetermined to that role. And Superman, or Kal-El, is the first naturally born human on Krypton in like centuries, and that's why he's important, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's all correct. One small thing, again, I didn't learn any of this from the movie. I learned it from the behind-the-scenes footage, which is much more engaging than the movie, by the way. Go check it out. They should re-release that as a movie, maybe. So the idea is that the planet has gone through like a phase in its history. Krypton has, in terms of being like a maximum efficiency race, right? Almost like robotic in nature. Where they thought, well, instead of having natural births that are random, we can engineer our citizens and they can be the best that they can be because of the code we place in their genetics. Yeah. And then they can be the best at the certain task that we need them. Like General Zod was specifically bred, and he says that in the movie, he was created to be a warrior and a protector of his race. That's what he is made for. And there basically the breeding process is separated by houses. Yeah, there's like the House of El and the House of Zod, and exactly the House of Ui, which is Fiora Ui, who's one of the generals of Zod, the lady general, and Laura Van, which is Superman's mom, Laura. Exactly. And sort of each house is sort of vaguely in charge of some separate element. Like there's a house that is bred for military. There's a house that is in charge of governing. There's a house that does science. That's Jor-El's house. I really want to give a lot of credit to the people who designed this stuff and who figured out the backstory of it, because one of the more ingenious thing that I've never seen in any Superman related media is the idea that the S on his chest is not actually an S. It's the symbol of Jor-El's house.
That was apparently from a Birthright, I think it's called, which is a comic book series.
Oh, all right. I haven't read it, but I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. But I thought that was a pretty nice touch, you know, and
Yeah.
it symbolizes hope. And they actually, the design people created a whole alphabet based on that. There's an alphabet of this.
Yeah, and that's like one of the things I got when I was rewatching it, that it really, like, it felt like Avatar for a moment, but that's because Jor-El like summons its own dragon, and it's like, wait a minute, is this Avatar? And it kind of feels like you can kind of see that there's been a lot of effort put into this portrayal of Krypton, and it's almost more interesting than the rest of the film, because
Absolutely, yeah.
it's a thing we've seen before. We've seen Krypton before, but it's in a way we have never seen it before, and that becomes really cool in a way.
Like, one of the details that I liked, and this I think is taken from some of the other cultures in human history that have done this, is that weapons are actually branded with writing that is a history of the houses of the people that use them. So there, if you look at the guns really closely, you can't see them because the cinematography is terrible. But if you look at the guns in the behind-the-scenes footage, you can see that they have inscriptions on them. And those inscriptions are, design-wise, they match the S motif, right? And they are very reminiscent of certain cultures throughout human history that have done this, where they, like, for example, Vikings would have rune writing on their axes and shit like that, you know? I almost wish that there was a whole movie that it was just like called Krypton or whatever.
Yeah, or like a prequel movie where we actually get more of this world when it was like not blowing up.
Like, or call it the House of L or something. L in the house, baby.
And then you could tie that in maybe to, we will probably get into the Supergirl tease when we get to that in the movie, or whoever is in that pod. But you could do something like that.
It could have had a really good like Greek tragedy feel to it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what happens. Everybody who watches this knows what's going to happen to Krypton. It's like ubiquitous.
And that's also why I feel like this sequence, because it is like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it's well thought out. It's thought out, like the mythology is there, you know.
But because it's so long, and because we know what's going to happen, and we know this is just set up for the rest of the 2 hours we're going to get into, despite the fact that it's probably the most interesting thing in the entire movie from like a new thing we're getting, it also feels kind of pointless. Like, we see Jor-El go through this entire thing of like, he gets the codex, which is this like relic that has inscripted, you know, the genetic code of Kryptonians, and puts it into his son? Question mark?
Well, first he bangs it on the floor.
This ancient relic monkey skull or whatever. He's just like, I'm crawling out of a lake. I'm gonna bang it against the rock.
Whoops.
Would have been so great if it broke. But yeah, he puts it into his son as like he will be a keeper of our like legacy or something. And then they sent him off world towards Earth.
Like, that's very selfish, right? Like, I'm gonna save my son. You know, even though I know that the end is coming, I'm not gonna attempt to. Why don't you create like a ship, like an ark?
Yeah, he could have created like a full-on ark and just been like,
whoever wants to come with me, come, right? Yeah, something like that. But I'm definitely gonna save myself and my wife and my child
because we actually want to leave.
Yeah, but his wife, poor Lara Lorvan, played by Elliot Zurer, a German actress. I mean, she has basically no bearing on the plot whatsoever, except for the fact that she gives birth to the main character of the movie.
Yeah. She has a nice little speech in the end when the entire thing blows up, but that's basically it.
Jor-El becomes relevant later on in the movie because he saves like a digital version of himself, an OS version of himself on a stupid little Superman.
Yeah, the Superman shaped USB drive that he gives it to his son as part of his like pod.
I guess there wasn't enough space for like a mom DLC on it. Like,
yeah, I was also like, why can't both of them be there? That would be like kind of cool, because they're like,
no, it's only me.
Like that would also tie into this idea that the different houses are like important, because that is like not even explained in this movie.
No.
So you could have been
only
like
explained the behind the scenes.
Like you could have played up the fact that this was a unity between two houses, that they like gave birth to a natural born son. Like that's apparently a really big deal for Krypton, but
yeah,
in the grand scheme of the movie, it means absolutely nothing.
You could have had the idea that Lara and Jor-El represent different elements of their respective houses.
Yeah.
And together, through their unity, they created something different. And they both need to instill their values within Kal-El.
Yeah.
But instead, it just get DadOS, who just explained his own values and then whatever. And his mom might as well would have not existed. You know, like Kal-El has no idea what his mom looks like.
Yeah.
Or how she sounds like. He knows basically everything about his dad, but nothing about his mom.
Yeah. Like, I have a fun little subtitle to this movie that is one of my very few notes, actually. I didn't take that many notes for this movie, but it's called Man of Steel, The Tale of Two Shit Dads. Because we will get to Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
So Superman is sent off-world because Krypton is dying, and the leaders of Krypton seem to have enough time to, like, imprison Zod for his, like, coup d'etat that went wrong.
Yeah, which saves him from the destruction of the planet.
Which is a thing from the Donna movie as well.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you have to redo it again, because it was stupid then.
Yeah, but this time they get put in dicks.
What were they thinking?
I just imagine somebody made that and they were like, kind of looks like a dick. And it's like, yeah, but we're still going to do it.
Well, I think it's again trying to maintain that techno-organic aesthetic, right? Like there's a liquid that forms around them and that turns into the ship, and you know it vaguely resembles their human shapes, but it also looks like a dick. So
it looks like a penis. But
I mean, I always said that Michael Shannon is a very phallic-looking man.
But that's also kind of funny, because I had to look up whether or not H.R. Giger actually had any involvement with this movie, because it literally looks like they just asked him to draw Krypton, and this was what he came up with.
No, I don't think so. Did he?
No, I don't think so either.
I just think a lot of designers are fans of H.R. Giger.
Yeah, I couldn't at least find if he had been involved in the movie.
He was not in the behind the scenes. And then Lara is left there with what I assumed was like a prototype of Brainiac. Like the AI that you see sometimes on the planet looks like a prototype of Brainiac, right?
Yeah, that's also a thing you could have gone into more. Like,
so Lara watches as flames engulf her.
Pillars of flame rise from the earth.
Yep. Nobody saw this coming except Jor-El, but you know, whatever. So and then the planet explodes and cut to some sort of fishing reality show. Cut
to Superman already grown up, working on a fishing trawler.
Up until this point, the whole Krypton sequence was fairly linear in terms of plot progression. And then in the meat and potatoes of the movie, which is Superman's Kal-El's journey, played by Henry Cavill, is fairly out of order up until a certain point.
Yeah.
Like you get flashback sequences from him as a child, him as a teenager, interspliced with him as an adult. And a lot of people speculate, even though there's no confirmation of this, that this is a Christopher Nolan move, because he is known for doing stuff out of order and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I kind of get it in a way. I just feel like some of the flashbacks are out of order as well.
I don't know, man. I don't think they're very necessary, most of them.
I think some of them are kind of necessary, but it also comes from the fact that some of them are kind of bad.
I don't understand this obsession, because this was also a thing in Superman Returns, which I've also seen recently.
Oh boy.
This obsession with the fact that Clark was always gonna be a hero. Like, he always had these aspirations to do good and to save other people. And I'm just like, I you know, if you want to be realistic, which is what the tone of of this movie is going for.
Uh,
You know, kids are just kids. You know, they don't think about this stuff. Like, you can show them be altruistic, but saving a bus is so, I don't know. It's played out, and it's an adult thing to consider, you know?
right. And that also leads into one of the sort of minor controversies in this movie, question mark? Which is Kevin Costner, who plays Jonathan Kent, literally telling Superman to kill people or let people die. Because when Clark Kent was Clark Kent was very young. He saved a bus from it drives off a bridge and lands into an ocean, and he basically pushes it out of the water. And he then has a talk with his dad about like what should he have done? Should he just have let him die? And he just goes, maybe. Which ties into the whole like a tale of two shit dads.
I think the worst stuff in the movie for me is the stuff with Pa Kent.
Yeah, but I feel like they almost have something where they could be like, okay, we have adult Superman. He's searching for a vessel that basically becomes his fortress of solitude. It's like an old colony vessel from back when Krypton was a colonizing nation,
planet.
Yeah, and with that he also gets like hologram dad, because it's on the little USB stick that he was given when he was sent off Krypton.
Yeah,
and they kind of play up this dichotomy of like, okay, Jonathan Kent wants his son to just be safe, and he's kind of afraid of the fact that, you know, what will humanity do when they actually see who he is and what he can do. And then you have, you know, Jor-El's idea of like he can be an ideal, he can be Superman basically.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, except that they play it up in such a bizarre way.
Yeah,
where like this idea doesn't really have any real bearing on the meat of the story.
Like this is also where I think the whole flashback thing sort of becomes kind of bad, because it kind of goes back in time to tell us things we already know. Because our first scene is him saving people. He's not Superman yet, he doesn't have the suit, but he saves people from like a burning oil rig.
Right.
And then we get back to flashbacks where he's like contemplating whether or not he should save people. It's like, well, he already dealt with that. So, and like we see later a flashback of him like standing up to bullies, and he's like, he holds back, but we've already seen him like force his anger out on like a fucking truck.
Which, oh my god, that fucking truck. So actually the lead up to it was okay when you know, this bully in the bar where Clark works at, he's being a bully, he's harassing women, he pours a drink in
he tries to push the Superman, which he can't, which I found that kind of funny.
That was a very good idea. Like, you know, he's trying to push Superman just doesn't budge at all, just doesn't even register with him. But then when this trucker bully person goes outside after that, he finds his truck impaled on like telephone posts or something.
I think it's wooden logs, because he's like a log.
Oh right, he's like a logging town and stuff. Yeah. All right. So yeah, so he like this truck is impaled on logs. It looks horrific, and like I found out in the behind the scenes that this was done practical, like on scale, not even a miniature. Which
is hilarious, because I rewatched the movie after you had shown me the pictures of this, and it looks terrible.
As dumb as this is, if there ever was a time to just do a quick CG shot, that was it. You know, but they didn't. They just like, let's just make a truck and just shove two logs through it and then place it there. And it's like, Jesus Christ, the amount of money they wasted on this stupid idea, because it's also one of the more infamous things that people bring up about the movie, is that it just shows how bitter and like crazy Clark or Superman is.
Yeah, which is funny because it doesn't, well, it plays up in another scene which we will get to, which I'm also kind of questioning, Um, and then of course it ties into like the ending, but other than that, like there isn't really that much of like, oh, will he turn bad kind of a thing, which a scene like him fucking impaling a fucking truck could showcase. Like
But the
he's
thing
like
is,
pent of anger or something, but no, he's
from what they talk about in the behind the scenes, I don't think they ever really intended for this to be like a tweener moment for Superman where you're like, oh, is he gonna be like a bad boy?
yeah, but then what is it?
It was just like these people are so like tone deaf and conservative in their views that they think that, oh, these people who are bullies, they should be punished. We should show them how it's done. You know, like let's impale his truck and that'll show him.
Yeah, that'll show him.
But, you know, the idea is more, or the stuff that I want to see more of is the idea that Superman tries to fix the world through nurture, not violence. Like one of the coolest things in some of the Superman comics, especially some of the more recent ones, is this idea that he can actually destroy the world by himself. He has enormous strength. You know, more than he even knows at point. He's a battery that keeps charging with solar energy. And he's afraid of himself. And that causes him angst because he doesn't know what his upper limits are. So he constantly has to keep himself held back because he doesn't know what will happen if he like throws a punch at full strength. He might crack the world in two.
They do a little bit of that in I don't know if you've watched it, but DC has a whole like other cinematic universe of animated movies, which
I've seen all of them, yeah.
Have you seen the Death of Superman one?
Yeah.
They play that up a little bit where it's like, okay, because it's Doomsday and we will get to Doomsday next time.
Yeah.
Like he can go all out because it's Doomsday and he needs to. And that's an interesting angle that this movie totally doesn't do.
You know, like Superman doesn't want to apply physical force. He needs to figure out a way to kind of nurture the world, you know, not attempt to destroy it. And this ties into the fact that he comes from a world that essentially destroyed itself, you know? So he knows through the cautionary tale of his homeworld that violence will only result in more violence, which would lead to destruction.
Yeah, which this version of Superman doesn't know yet because he hasn't gotten to the Fortress of Solitude ship.
But even after all of that, well, we'll get to that or whatever. But you know, like the gesture with the truck is so. It's very tone deaf.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous image to look at. You know, he's a truck impaled on log posts. You're like, what is this? Like if you were a truck driver and that would happen to your truck, you wouldn't be like, oh, somebody vandalized my truck. You'd be like,
what the fuck?
What am I gonna do? You know, this is my job.
It's very unsubtle.
Yeah, and it's also like you're not helping anybody by doing this, Superman, because you know that bully now doesn't have a job anymore. So
it's like very petty.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Superman is basically just a traveling nomad.
Yeah, he's a recluse.
Yeah, going further and further north because he's going towards this ship.
Yeah.
And we also, through that, get introduced to Amy Adams' Lois Lane, who is put on an assignment by the Daily Planet to sort of investigate this discovered Kryptonian scout ship, which is in the Arctic.
In the Canadian Arctic.
There's a nice little scene where she's talking to, I think it's the general or somebody, and then you see Clark Kent just walk past.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice little one.
Yeah.
And it all ends with them basically meeting as he is on the ship and he sort of turns it on with his little USB key, and it sees Lois Lane, who has followed him into the ship, as an intruder, and he saves her, and that's sort of their formal introduction to each other.
He saves her from like a AI robot.
Yeah, a brainiac robot.
Yeah.
Which is actually one of the things I like that this movie does, which is it totally forgoes the idea that Lois Lane doesn't know that Clark Kent is Superman.
Yeah, that was a smart choice. Although, I have to say, and this is one of my notes here, that their introduction sequence, basically when they first meet in the movie,
right,
face to face, is shot and feels like a rape sequence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but this is how it felt to me. It's shaky. A lot of the movie employs shaky cam because Lois is panicking over the fact that she just saw a person squash a robot into pieces, and
And she's
basically,
hurt.
yeah, like she's freaking out, like right, she's like yelling, she's screaming, and Clark is grabbing her, and I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, he cauterizes her wound with his laser vision, which is a very creepy sequence because of the way it's shot.
Yeah,
Like it suddenly goes to this like long shot or this like wide shot of just them in the center, like all alone, and you just hear her scream, and it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's shot in a way that feels very graphic, even though nothing is happening.
Yeah,
and again, that speaks to how, I don't know, tone deaf Zack Snyder is. Like, at the end of the day, you want to believe that these two people want to be together with each other, because that's what happens. Spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah.
Lois Lane, and that they're friends and that they're partners, and this is how you introduce them. And I guess to an extent, if you again go with this whole realism obsession with realism, you would be very scared of this otherworldly person with enormous strength,
But yeah, Superman escapes with the scout ship, flies it somewhere safe, and gets the great info dump from Hologram Dad, who tells him the sort of backstory of like, Krypton used to be this conquer or this like colonial power, and then they started dying, and then also on the scout ship is the last remnants of Krypton. Like there's an entire
birthing pods that we saw in the Krypton sequence. It's like a tree, tree where the seeds are like little baby.
Yeah, it looks like giant underwater. What is it? Kelp.
Yeah.
Again, going with the sort of bioorganic theme, and then he's given the Superman suit.
You didn't like it?
The Superman suit?
Yeah.
I have a lot of problems with it.
So I think in the universe of the movie, the idea is that this is like a bare bones Kryptonian suit.
Yeah, it's like an everyday suit, because we see Jor-El actually wear like armor outside of his.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually kind of sad they never brought back for Superman, because I thought that would be kind of cool. Like if he like had to level up against an enemy, he would put on armor.
Yeah. So in the behind the scenes, they explain the dressing as in the suit that Superman wears is basically the basic version of a Kryptonian outfit.
Yeah.
It's sort of a chainmail-y type material, right?
Mm-hmm. We also see Jor-El wear something similar when he dives into the pool to get
and I think we also see Zod wear something similar.
Yeah, we see him and his team wear a black version of it, basically.
Yes, because they're the bad guys. But they also explain that capes play a major part in Kryptonian society. So
I was about to ask about the cape.
Because remember that Jor-El also wears a cape.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Zod also wears a cape.
Does. He tears his off.
Yeah. So essentially, the capes are supposed to symbolize the length of your house, like how far back does your house go is symbolized by the length of your cape.
Right.
Which I thought was an interesting idea. Yeah. Again, not in the movie.
Not explained.
Not explained at all. But as a behind-the-scenes sort of idea, I think that's interesting. It's interesting. But, because like, who the fuck would wear a cape in 2013, as a stylistic choice by themselves? So I think that the idea of the Superman suit just being a run-of-the-mill uniform for like a Kryptonian person was an interesting. It made me think, like, what if Kal-El ever meets like another person from Krypton, and that person would be like, "Man, your suit is shit." Like,
I mean, he's basically running around in his underwear, which is funny because they removed the red underwear from the.
That was a good choice. Oh, that was a good choice.
But okay, speaking of the Superman suit, strictly the design of it.
Yeah.
I have some problems.
All right, let's hear them.
I like the cape.
Right.
Because it's this like very thick fabric. It looks like kind of a woolly fabric, which really cool. This is one of my big problems with the Superman Returns suit, is that the cape looks terrible.
Yeah, it looks like that stuff that people use to shield their windshield of their cars.
Yeah, it looks like leather.
Like that.
It looks like leather. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't like the material they chose for the actual suit. It looks like a basketball.
They like the chainmail type. Yeah.
Yeah, but it has like a imprinted texture on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's not made like chainmail. It's just a uniform suit with like a texture on it, and it looks like a basketball.
Yeah, it has too much texturing on it, I
Yeah.
think. Like in some of the close-ups, it looks really disturbing. Like I personally have like problems with the trypophobic imagery, you know, like tiny dots clustered together and stuff like that.
Right.
Not that I started to vomit or anything, but but I find it unpleasant, you know. And I agree with you that, you know, in some of the shots, like, oh God, you know, take this away from me.
Yeah. And it also comes down to the way they light it and color correct it.
Yep.
Which is really sad.
Because I think it got, you know, sort of speaking of the movies we're going to do further along the road.
Right.
But I think it got better in later movies, slightly, because I think they made a new one for each of the other movies.
Right.
And I think slight things got better. Yeah, but as a prototype, I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but I still have problems with it.
I understand. Well, none of the Superman suit. It is really hard to design a Superman suit.
I mean, what would my favorite cinematic Superman suit be of the movies, not any of the TV show things?
No, you don't have that much to choose from, really.
I would probably say the Superman Returns one is pretty okay.
The one that you just slagged on?
I slapped the cape. And the shoes. Let's be fair, the shoes are terrible.
Those Nike shoes.
Yeah, with like the Superman logo on the back of them.
Horrible.
What were they thinking?
Yeah, Daniel, that one's the best suit. You just shit
but
on
it's
me.
like when you look at the use of the blue and the red, like the color scheme of Superman and like the way it looks on Brendan Routh in the movie, I think it looks pretty okay. Whereas the suit on Henry Cavill looks like he's a balloon, which is kind of sad because I read a lot of interviews of Henry Cavill actually being very proud of his physique for this movie.
Oh, yeah. It comes across a lot in the behind the scenes that he really worked out for this movie like crazy.
Specifically he has 2 shirtless scenes in this movie. And it's very specific because he really wanted those to be like when you see him shirtless that you should think, okay, he looks like Superman, like physically.
And he does. He does.
He looks.
He has breasts that are bigger than most women.
Yeah. But I mean, this is also an entire thing with like bulking up for movies and things like that. That's an entire discussion that could be its own video or its own like episode. But I love the fact that after they had done those 2 shirtless scenes, because that was what he trained mostly for, so that he could sort of sell the physique of Superman.
Right.
Zack Snyder gave him a tub of ice cream and a pizza. As like you did it. But yeah, it feels kind of sad because, you know, I feel like the suit doesn't really help in his look of Superman, honestly. Like, I don't think it looks terrible.
To be perfectly honest with you, if we were to consider all the Zack Snyder Superman suits as one suit, because they look similar enough. Yeah. I think this is my favorite cinematic Superman suit. Again, not a lot of stuff to choose from. I hate the Superman Returns suit. I
also hate a lot of things about the Superman Returns. The little Superman logo they like stamped into it. So overly designed.
The Chris Reeve one is fine for what it is, but it's from the 70s and it sucks. So, I mean, you know, just by process of elimination, this is my favorite one.
Yeah, you're probably right. But it's also like the fact that they go very hard on the like bioorganic imagery on like the exosuits that they wear.
Right.
But not on the undersuit. Like I feel like you could have designed the suit more to have like the logo feels kind of out of place, the S on his chest. Like that could have been incorporated better, like a extension of the cape or something like that. And I feel like you could have done more with it to make it look more like that, like bioorganic thing that they are going for with this movie. But I mean, I'll live with this Superman suit being kind of terrible. My biggest problem is the color correction because it never looks proper blue.
I mean, is this a good a time as any to talk about the fucking color correction?
Yes.
All right. I mean, the color correction, from what I remember, out of all of the movies, again, I haven't watched the other ones that we're gonna do. I'm gonna watch them when we do them. This is the worst out of all of them, from what I remember, in terms of the way it looks and the colors and everything.
Yeah, but
this is like Superman by the way of Desert Storm.
Yes, that's actually a very good way of saying it. I mean, from what I remember, Batman v Superman also doesn't look very good in terms of... I
remember it looking slightly better. Slightly.
Yeah, slightly. But the funny thing was that I also remember the color correction of this movie being very bad. But then you get to the Krypton sequence in the beginning, and it looks fine. The
blacks are very crushed. The contrast is very high. The highlights are lowered. So it gives you an austerity feel the whole time. You know, the saturation is fairly low. There's not a lot of color popping out. And it works for the Krypton sequence because you're not in an austere environment. You're on a dying planet, you know?
Yeah.
Shit is happening all over the place. And that makes sense. Also, one of the weirdest things that I found with the color correction is that the only thing that seems to have a high saturation mark is the explosions. The explosions are very yellow.
Very.
And they come across, they really look fake. They look so fake.
Yeah, they look really blown out.
Not because they're
in like a lighting way.
Not because they're like either rendered bad or because they made bad. It's just that they upped the yellows a lot. And so whenever an explosion appears on screen, it just looks completely out of place.
Yeah, which brings me to a little note I have on the cinematographer of this movie, which is a man named Amir Mokri. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Sorry.
Fair enough.
But he was the cinematographer for Transformers 3 and 4.
God damn it.
And I was like, okay, now it kind of makes sense because Transformers is also known for having this like weird color palette and these like very blown out, specifically orange tones. But that's more of a Zack Snyder thing anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't only make things like the explosions and the Superman suit and things like that look kind of bad, but it also makes the actors look kind of bad.
Oh, it looks the actors look sick. They look like they have Lyme disease.
Yeah, like
we talked about before. We talked especially Amy Adams, right? Who's very pretty lady. We've seen her in other stuff. We know how she's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And in this movie, she looks, I don't know, like, it's not like she's ugly or anything like that. It's just that, like, you know, to quote a famous internet reviewer, what's wrong with your face?
Yeah. Like, this is thanks to all of them. Like, Michael Shannon looks like a corpse, which, you know.
Works for him.
Yeah, I mean, it works. He's the villain, and he's a corpse later. But also, like, Henry Cavill, like, his forehead looks terrible. It's like, oh my god, you could park a spaceship on that thing.
I wrote to you, it looks like Swiss cheese.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad because, like, the things that I think Zack Snyder is good at as a director is these, like, very striking pieces of imagery. He asked, like, the best concept artist to do the concept, and then he just shot that, you know? Without any regards for how it fits within like the movie itself. It's just like, that's how we do it. Right. Which is specifically relevant when he did Watchmen, which I don't know if he did Watchmen before or after this. I think he did it before.
Oh, he did it before 2009.
Which just basically takes all the comic book panels and is like, that's our shot. Which,
exactly.
You know, works for some of it. There's just a lot of things on the production side of this movie that is like, they really tried. And I feel like the cast is pretty good. I like Henry Cavill as Superman, even though in none of these movies he gets anything to do. He gets nothing to do in any of these movies, which is why he feels so fucking bland as Superman. I like Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I think she's a really good casting choice. I like Michael Shannon as Zod because it's Michael Shannon. What do you want?
Yeah, he's really good. I like Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne is
Perry
good.
White.
Perry White. And I even like some of the minor cast. Like I like the Antje Trau, who plays Feora.
Right. Yeah, she was really
Yeah,
good.
she has
Yeah.
like she's Sod's second in command. She has a few scenes where she's like basically just a menacing villain, but she does it really good. And then you have Russell Crowe who plays Jor-El, and you have Kevin Costner playing Jonathan Kent, and you have who is it who plays
Diane Lane.
Diane Lane who plays Martha Kent. It is kind of weird that you have a production side that is doing good work, and you have an acting side that is also doing pretty good work, but then it just gets lost in like the script and the directing and in it's just like, first of all, this movie is 2.5 hours. It does not need to be 2.5 hours.
No.
Like,
you need to cut down the flashback because nobody gives a fuck about those.
Yeah, and like, I feel like you could cut
Dick splash.
Yeah, you could cut half of them and then like maybe move the ones that are around a little bit so they maybe fit more thematically into
the one flashback sequence that I liked was the one where his Clark's X-ray vision starts appearing when he's a teenager, like 12, I think, something like that, and he freaks out. It's like similar to when people who are on the spectrum are having, you know, a panic attack.
And that one is also relevant because when Sod arrives, which he basically does right after this, after Superman takes his first flight, which is a scene I actually kind of like. I like the music. I like the use of the Jor-El quote.
Right, but back on at the teenage Superman thing. So I like that sequence because, you know, it builds the relationship that Superman has with his Earth mom, with Martha. You know, like Martha tries to, you know, protect him, and it kind of presents this idea that that's what his Earth parents have to do, because while Clark can be perceived very badly by the world, Clark doesn't really know who he is himself. He doesn't know what his powers are. He doesn't know how to control them. So you can see where his parents' instincts are going. They're going towards preservation, you know, caution. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
But you don't need anything more than that.
Another flashback I would keep, personally, well, I would keep two that you haven't mentioned. I would keep the when Jonathan Kent actually shows him the pod and like tells him about that they found him, he crash landed, whatever. Because
fair enough,
because that one is fine. It's relevant. Yeah, it's relevant to the story. The one I would actually keep is the very last one, where we see it was one that was heavily used in the trailers, which is where we see Superman as a child running around with a cape, and he stands in the classic Superman pose, and we actually get an added shot from the trailers where Jonathan Kent is like, he sees his son do this, and I felt so annoyed when I saw that thing at the end of the movie, because it feels like the perfect thing to set up the fact that Jonathan Kent can look at his son and go, you know what? Maybe he could be, like, instead of saying you should let these people die, like actually spur some kind of change and be like, you know what? Maybe he could be like the same way that Jor-El says you could be an ideal that people could strive towards.
He puts a lot of pressure on Clark.
Right.
You know, he's not much of a parent. He's like a legal guardian, like a creepy uncle that you go to. He's like, oh, you need to figure out what you're going to do with your powers, Clark. Otherwise, like, why not just parent him like a child? But you know, like, don't make him worry about this stuff. He doesn't understand any of this.
Yeah, but if we continue the metaphor of, like, Clark being basically like a child, special needs child, then I could see that scene as being a way for Jonathan to actually see him as just a kid, instead of being, you know, a thing I need to protect. It's like, sees him as his own person. Again, the movie builds none of this and relegates this honestly really well shot little sequence to the end of the fucking film.
Yep.
So, yeah.
We see Superman fly for the first time. I want to say, like, on a technical level, I think the flight is done very well.
Yeah.
I mean, the flight is always done very well in Superman movies, done well in Superman Returns, and done well in the 70s one. It's kind of like a point of pride for the Warner Brothers lot to make the Superman flight sequences look really well.
I mean, hell, they marketed the very first Superman movie as "You will believe a man could fly," and they did a damn good job for a movie for the 70s.
So they always try to make it look spectacular and fun, and they actually did a lot of shots where Henry Cavill is suspended, like basically with a bunch of cables in the air, and then they have a high-speed camera just fly towards him, and that simulates the idea of him flying through air, even though he's staying perfectly still.
But with this, we also had like the continuation of the Lois Lane subplot, where she's told Perry White about, played by Lawrence Fishburne, about her experience with Superman, and then he doesn't believe her, and then she publishes an article anyway about like this mysterious person who lives among us, and then SOD comes in and the military comes in, because of course it does.
This is a problem with a lot of American movies, which is this emphasis on the military.
Right.
It's not a good look.
No, and it's
in the sense that I get what they're doing, because I know that the military gives funds to movies that depict the military in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that they even used footage from Man of Steel in recruitment ads for the military. And stuff like that.
This is a thing that is done quite heavily in the Transformers franchise, or at least the Michael Bay Transformers movies.
Yeah. And in other movies
and
as
in
well.
other movies, yeah.
I think even some of the Marvel movies did this as well.
Yeah. But the Michael Bay ones is the ones that really do it a lot.
Yeah, they're the primary suspect.
Yeah.
I know that at least in the Smallville sequence, the fight in the Smallville sequence, they used actual military personnel. And, from what I can tell, Zack Snyder is very into the military and loves the military and respects the military, salute the troops, blah, blah, blah.
If you can portray the military well to the point where they can actually use footage of it in like recruitment, then they will lend you equipment, personnel, things like that, so that you can like expand the scope of your production.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, it just becomes noise, except the few times when it doesn't. And this is particularly something like Michael Bay's movies. It's so pervasive, and it's so fucking pervasive that
and it feels condescending.
And it feels like, okay, there's been a lot of jokes leveled at the Smallville fight scene in Man of Steel because of the amount of product placement that is in it, which is kind of funny when you look at it. And that's kind of how I feel about sometimes when the movies go overboard with
the military and stuff.
It's kind of like, hey, let's show you IHOP instead. Let's show you the U.S. military and them being good, Which
forget all the bad stuff.
Forget all the bad stuff.
I want to see like a military officer come into the shot and be like, "Oh, sorry, I was just off screen torturing a bunch of people. Sorry about that."
That will never happen.
No, it's like, we know what you're doing, America. Stop it.
But from a storytelling perspective, I kind of get it in this movie.
Yeah, with the realistic tone, I get like, oh, what if Superman interacts with the military?
And it's
okay,
like,
fine.
You could imagine that, like, to facilitate this like conversation between an alien, basically, and the U.S., because the rest of the Earth doesn't exist.
No,
the military would be a point of communication. It's not as bad as other movies, but it is still kind of weird, and it does feel kind of like lazy in a way.
It actually keeps in tone for once.
Yeah,
with what the rest of the movie is portraying, which is the fact that Clark or Kal-El or Superman, whatever, has a very, very narrow scope of what the world is.
Right.
He was raised most of his life in Kansas. He's lived most of his adult life as an isolated, alienated person.
Right.
And he only, in terms of his interactions as Superman, mostly interacts with the military.
And Lois Lane.
And it's like, what about, like, I'm curious, what if you had like a sequence between Superman and the Dalai Lama?
Right.
Right, that would be interesting.
But that also feels like very Christopher Reeve Superman, like the old Superman movies.
Yeah, but Superman is not, again, and this is one of those things that I dislike about some of the people that write Superman and some of the people who choose to portray the idea of Superman as being like an all-American hero.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does any of this have to do with being American? Like, he's an alien. And he protects the world. He doesn't just defend America. It presents a hero with immense strength and immense potential,
right?
But with a very narrow scope.
This is actually a thing I've kind of wanted Superman stories to tackle a little bit more. So the old sort of slogan for Superman was truth and justice in the American way.
Right.
Which they've sort of gone away from in like more modern comics to just be truth and justice. Because but what does that mean? Because as you said, Superman has grown up in Kansas his entire life. He's pretty isolated in terms of like his knowledge of other people in the world by the fact that he grew up in Kansas all his life. So why would he know anything else then? Like you could do something very interesting of like, what would the worldview of Superman be if he grew up, if you actually looked at like, okay, what would it be to be like a Kansas farm boy and then give that Kansas farm boy these like immense powers and this immense responsibility, like, but that would take actual effort.
Yeah, like for example, it's not his fault. It's not Clark's fault that he has a narrow scope growing up. He just, that's the circumstances in which he was brought up.
Yeah, like he landed in Kansas. So
once he takes up the mantle of Superman and being a protector of humanity, you could have the idea of like, oh shit, well now I have to, I have a bigger responsibility. I can't, just do everything based on what Pa Kent taught me.
Yeah, like the American values.
Because he only, his view of the world only went so far.
Yeah.
And I need to be more than that, not necessarily be disrespectful to Kent's memory, but sort of expand on it,
This is also a thing with like, because this is a Superman movie that is made after 9/11,
Of course it is.
Yeah, and it very much feels like it. We'll get to that. But compare that to something like Superman Returns, where it's very much trying to continue the theme and legacy of like the very old Superman movie, the Donner.
The Richard Donner's one.
Yeah. Which were very idealized and very like
in a bubble.
Yeah.
Right?
In like this very comic booky universe where Superman saves a cat and saves a cat from a tree, and then the little girl walks in and gets slapped by her mom. Oh my god, that movie has not aged well.
Nope.
But yeah, it's like, it's kind of fun, it's kind of campy in a way, in like a fun way. But then you get to the Superman Returns version and they kind of have to do it a little bit more seriously, and then it just seems dumb as hell. Like,
yep.
But then when you then take that serious tone and actually apply it to Superman earnestly, you get Man of Steel, and it's like, I don't think this works either.
You need a better writer, that's it.
Yeah, and I think it's because like a lot of writers have tried to change Superman to fit the times.
And some of them succeeded.
Yeah, but I would argue that's the wrong approach. I would much rather have Superman, instead of him being molded to fit what time he's in, he could be a reflection upon the time that he's in.
Yeah.
As we talked about, like, how would classic era Superman respond to like 2013 when this movie came out? Like, how would that look?
But I want to see this idea of Superman trying to basically make the best of both worlds. Like, okay, I want to understand my Kryptonian heritage and what my people, my ancestors stood for, and I want to understand my human home where I grew up most of my life, well, all of my life basically, and they are my people in a sense, and I want to make the best out of both worlds.
Right.
And I don't see that in this movie, and that's
No.
what annoys me. This movie is a mess.
Yeah.
And it's more concerned, and there's an interview with David Esquire on the behind the scenes, and he's mostly concerned with just a bunch of Jesus shit.
Yeah.
He's like Moses.
Yeah.
He's like Jesus. And
He actually mentions when he's so he's on the military base being ready to be picked up by General Zod, and
Right.
because he surrenders himself and they put him in handcuffs, which is cute. And he has an aside with Lois Lane in like an interview room where some scientist poses the question of whether or not he has brought a alien pathogen to Earth, and he goes, "Oh, I've been here for 33 years and I haven't infected anyone yet," which, fun fact, is the age commonly associated when Jesus died. God damn the Jesus imagery in this movie. I mean, I get it, but it becomes way too much.
Wasn't this movie used for like? Wasn't there some sort of tie-in with churches where they used this for like recruitment into churches or something like that?
Oh God, I hope not.
Or I think priests were saying, "Go watch Man of Steel. It's like a Christian movie."
I mean, it basically is, to an extent.
Kind of is, yeah, in a very strange way. So General Zod arrives, and Superman, along with Lois Lane, for no reason. Did you get the reason why Zod also took Lois Lane?
It's because, like, when they land, they talk with Feora sort of becomes the envoy between the military and Zod, and she goes, "Well, Zod also wants this woman," and then they're allowed to take her on board. But I don't think we're ever explained why. Like that's a very like because the plot needs to happen kind of thing, which is right.
Like the general asks why, and then she's like, "Well, how will Superman escape then?"
Yeah.
Did you know that the guy who plays the general in that scene, General Swanswick, played by Harry Lennox, is very good in the movie. He's also a very good actor in other stuff. He was supposed to be Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, and it was apparently supposed to be a setup that he is Martian Manhunter, which I don't know if they will pay off in the Snyder Cut. We'll see it when we get there.
Yeah.
Which is...
I don't think they will.
No, I don't think so either. But if they do, that retroactively makes this movie really weird, but because wouldn't Superman be able to look through him and see that he has like 2 hearts? Or however many hearts the Martians have?
Like this whole time, does Superman know that this person's an alien too?
And if so, why hasn't he done anything with this? This could have been useful in like the next movie or this movie. I don't know.
Just lights a match near him to fuck with him.
Yeah, he's like, "So how do you like fire?"
It's like, fuck you. Fuck you, Superman.
You need a glass of water? You look like you're burning up.
So they get on Zod's ship. What I like about the way that they figure out the science of Superman and stuff. Again, a lot of people that are really talented work behind the scenes on this, except the writer and the director. But they have a nice explanation, which is that the Earth's atmosphere is actually the thing that gives Superman his powers.
Yeah.
Like in the Krypton sequence, nobody has Superman powers. They're just regular people.
Yeah, because their sun is older, so he doesn't get radiated with yellow.
Yeah, they don't get as much nourishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, from their sun.
Yeah, and then the atmosphere also helps like make him stronger, and that's also the reason he can fly and things like that.
Yeah, our planet has lower gravity apparently than Krypton,
which is a thing that's been played up in the comics, specifically the sun thing.
So basically, Superman acts as a battery that sucks in solar radiation at a much, much better rate than normal humans. And that nourishes him and, expands his muscles and his strength. And the flight thing is actually because of the gravity.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you really think about it, because then as soon as he would leave Earth's atmosphere, he wouldn't be able to fly.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think they ever explained it, but I made up my own explanation for it because I wanted to explain it to myself.
Fair.
The laser thing.
Yeah.
So the laser eyesight isn't really explained. It's a thing from the comics, and I don't think it was ever really explained. what I choose to, so the way our eyes work is that it acts as a lens
Right.
that focuses in solar flares,
Well, light.
into our retina and focuses it in to create an image in the back of our eyes, in the interior side of our eyes. Now, what if a Kryptonian's eyes acts the same way that their skin acts? Like they absorb much better, much more efficient, and much more solar radiation. But because it's a lens with a curvature, if it focuses in a lot of solar energy into a specific point, and if you can control it, you can then release it at certain intervals. Like it's essentially the same type of energy, except it's released in a very focused form.
Right. I think there is a comic, one of the newer Superman comics, where they basically, like, they give Superman a new power, which is basically he can explode, which is basically he releases all of the energy in him.
Super farts.
Basically. And I think they try to explain that his laser vision is a kind of version of that, where he just projects it out through his eyes instead of, exploding in all directions.
All right.
Which actually leads to one really good Superman sort of run where he doesn't have any powers.
All right.
But yeah, like, he gets on board Zod's ship, and because Zod's ship sort of emulates Kryptonian atmosphere, he gets sick, which I kind of like, because
I really liked it, because I was getting sick of the whole kryptonite thing. Like, piece of kryptonite. Blah.
Yeah.
But the idea that, this is simulating, and the same way humans have troubles with adapting to different atmospheres, Clark would, like, if he was trained, he would just lose his powers, but he's not trained in different atmospheres, so he becomes sick the way a human would.
Yeah, and this is also mirrored in Zod's army, where, like, when their like protective suits become damaged, then they get exposed to all of the sort of inputs that Superman did as a child when he started, seeing through things, and the laser vision and things like that. And Zod, because he's a soldier and because he's Zod, sort of overcomes it and becomes evil Superman.
Yeah. And on the ship, while Clark is being held hostage, he has like a dream sequence.
Kind of, yeah.
Slight, like somebody's maybe reading his mind, maybe.
This is where Zod kind of reveals his entire plan of, like, we want to make Earth into the new Krypton, and we want to use your ship because it has a bunch of babies in it to make new Krypton.
And I'm like, this again?
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
It's turned into fucking Independence Day. Like the whole terraforming Earth thing. I feel like it's been done so many times.
With the evil dubstep machine of death.
Blah, 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 blah. I like the imagery of Superman sinking into a bunch of skulls.
Yeah, because he asks, like, what will this be built on? And then, like, Zod goes, a foundation must always be built on something. And then it's, like, just skulls.
I like that.
Yeah. Although it is still fucking weird that there is this, like, dream sequence. Like,
it is very extreme visually, again.
Yeah.
Not
again, very, like, concept arty.
Yeah, I liked it as a visual. I don't think it's particularly, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything really.
Yeah.
But, good visual, whatever.
There is also explanation that Zod has basically been using the last 33 years to assemble. He's flown to all the other Kryptonian outposts and gotten, like, material and the world engine, and as it's called, that sort of terraforms planets into Kryptons.
Yeah.
And then when Superman activated the scout ship, he then was like, okay, now we know where he is.
Yeah, he basically sent a beacon. That they picked up.
And then that's why they've showed up.
Yep.
Which, good explanation.
Yeah,
I
solid. So Lois Lane escapes the holdings of the ship with the help of Jor-El OS.
Yeah.
Because she uploads via the USB stick Jor-El into the mainframe of the ship, And then we get like a weird video game sequence.
Yeah, whereas like he like shows up multiple times and like opens doors for her, and it's just like,
Shoot left.
imagine being Russell Crowe and shooting that over like 4 days or something.
It's like,
It's just like,
what am I doing?
what am I doing? I was in Gladiator.
I was about to say, I was a gladiator. I was in A Beautiful Mind.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was in Les Miserables last year. When this year?
Yeah. I can sing.
I think.
I think, kind of.
Right,
I mean,
Amy
he
Adams?
can actually.
Sure.
He can't actually sing. It's just that movie is terrible.
Yeah. So it plays out that sequence with Amy Adams on the ship with a gun. It's kind of like a tutorial from a video game. Russell Crowe's like your guiding tutorial person who's like, press space to jump.
Yeah.
Aim sights with mouse.
But it was also when I saw that sequence, I was like, I kind of get why it's here, because other than that, like Lois Lane would not be in this movie for the rest of the movie.
It's an interaction between two characters that have never interacted before, that don't know anything about each other. It's like, right. I'm Kal-El's...
And will never interact again, and there will be no repercussions from them interaction, or from their interaction.
It's like Superman's love interest just met Superman's dad in a AI form. Well,
he mentions at some point that she could be like his guiding light or something like that.
And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Which actually ties into Batman v Superman and a little bit into Justice League.
Of course it does. they thought about all of this ahead. All right, so Lois manages to free Clark. They bust a hole into the ship, which is now in the Earth's atmosphere. So Clark gets to be exposed again to the sun and to the.
He Jesus the hell out of there.
He crosses, and he says goodbye to his OS dad. Very strange. The relationship is so strange. It's very cold. Very.
I love that he has an interaction with Michael Shannon with General Zod, and he goes, "I'm arguing with a ghost." He literally stops for a moment and goes like, "I'm fucking arguing to an AI of a guy I just murdered 33 years ago. For fuck's sake!
What has my life become?
What is this?"
Right. After that, we basically go into the Smallville fight, right?
Right.
Which is a disaster. So
I mean, it's the better fight of the movie.
It has. So this is where the stylistic choices, besides the whole color correction thing, which is horrible.
Right.
This idea of quick zooming in and out and sort of giving.
There's a lot of
quick zoom. It's supposed to give like a documentary style. You see it in some of the flight sequences as well. It's supposed to be like it's very shaky handheld thing. And I'm like, I can't see the action, goddammit.
Right. And there is also this emphasis on speed.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that the Kryptonians fight really fast, which I kind of like as an idea.
Yeah.
And I like the way that Superman fights like Feora, and she's clearly beating the shit out of him because she's an actual soldier and he's a farm boy from Kansas.
Right.
I don't know. I find it okay, and there's actual scenes of like Superman saving people.
Yeah, the only ones in the movie.
The only ones in this movie.
He saved the dick splash.
Yeah. I feel like this fight scene was like a proof of concept.
Maybe.
Somewhere.
Maybe.
For like, okay, how would Kryptonians fight? How would Superman be in this fight and things like that? And then they brought that to the final fight of the movie and forgot all of it.
Yeah, I do agree that in comparison to the last fight, this one, the Smallville one, is better.
Right.
I still find it visually exhausting because, again...
I mean, yeah, it is visually exhausting.
The quick zoom, the shaky cam, the horrible color correction, again.
Yeah.
There's even... Because they break down the choreography and the behind the scenes as well. And they say that, Feora has a special move with like a palm. She has like a palm thrust. And she does it in the movie. I'm like, does she? Because I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, there's not really an emphasis on that.
Also, there's like another Kryptonian that always has his mask on. That's like a big hulking dude.
The big dude.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck is up with that guy?
Yeah, who looks like he looks like something out of Prometheus.
Yeah, because
he wears that like mask with the respirator on. It looks like the elephant mask from Prometheus.
Right. Because it almost feels like like when they introduce themselves, like, I'm Emperor Zod, this is Fiora Ui, and I'm the third guy.
Yeah, and this is the third guy.
Hello.
It's the big brute. I'm Ben.
So basically they level Smallville to the ground and
yeah,
destroy it. Or maybe it was the fracking.
We'll never know.
They destroy Smallville. And then the fight, basically, there's some other stuff that happens in between, but nobody gives a shit. Right, no, that's when Zod releases the terraforming thing.
The World Engine.
The World Engine, which is, like you said, is supposed to terraform Earth's atmosphere into Krypton atmosphere, which is in the process going to kill all the humans on the planet.
Right.
And then the good guys being the military, woo! And Superman devised a plan to tackle the 2 points, one being Zod's ship, the other being the World Engine, because they're on opposite points of the Earth, and destroy them simultaneously, sort of. Did you... Okay, this is a... So, Superman goes after the World Engine, right?
Right.
Is that World Engine in Smallville? In
No.
Metropolis, sorry.
There's one in Metropolis, and there's one in, like, the Indian Ocean.
Right.
And the one in Metropolis gets hit by Zod's ship, I believe, and then they activate the Phantom Zone and, like, zoom it away.
So, and which one does Superman go after?
The one in the Indian Ocean. That's the one he flies up through, where he flies up through the beam and, like, destroys.
Right, because I was very confused by the editing where anything was. Because they have the Daily Planet people, Perry White and the creepy guy from House of Cards, Doug.
Yeah, who's extra creepy in this movie in some way.
Well, because that's what he does. He's a creepy actor. He does creepy shit.
But there is like scenes in like the final scene of the movie when we're back at the Daily Planet.
When he asks Lois out?
Yeah, and she goes like, "You have better luck with the interns," and then he turns to one of the interns and it's like, "No," and it's like, "Ew."
So yeah, a bunch of Daily Planet employees are also like a very intense, like horrific sequence where one of the employees is stuck on the rubble, very 9/11-esque.
Yeah, because after the World Engine stuff gets destroyed,
no,
it's
that's during the World Engine.
Oh yeah, because the World Engine does like its dubstep move and like
that starts leveling the city. And this is intercut with Superman trying to destroy the world. Like I really get what they were going for, but something about the way it's edited together, it's cut too in betweeny. Like they cut back and forth too much, and I was confused where Superman was and where this Daily Planet crew was. And second, there's no real connection between Superman and these people. That's what they were trying to do in that sequence. They were like, Superman is fighting to save these Daily Planet folks, but he hasn't met them yet.
He doesn't know squat about them.
Yeah, he doesn't work at the Daily Planet yet. He's a fucking bum.
He knows that Lois Lane exists. Yeah. That's basically it.
Like, I get what they were going for, but they haven't established any relationship with these characters. So I'm like, Yeah. But the moment, what did you think of the moment when, Superman, so he's being crushed by this beam from the World Engine, again, laser in the sky, what a surprise in a superhero movie, and he sort of goes through it, like prevails, the music swells and goes through it and destroys it. What did you think about that?
Yeah. Because, again, like, it's kind of funny because they've decided to split the action up into 2 points.
Right.
You have Metropolis and you have the other World Engine, or the World Engine, whatever. But you send Superman to that we have no relation to. It's just in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right.
And then you decide to have him come back to Metropolis to save Metropolis, and in doing so, basically nuking the entire city. I just find it weird. Like, I get they came up with the idea that it takes 2 World Engines at each end of the planet to like terraform it, but it just splits the action up so that like we don't give a shit about where the one that Superman goes after is.
Yeah.
They mentioned that I think it's in the Indian Ocean, but it's like we don't know. It could be fucking 2 streets down the road.
Yeah, also none of the characters that we know live there.
There's like no characters. It's just there.
Yeah.
It's just in a field or in a swamp.
I get that indirectly it affects the one in Metropolis because they need to be 2, I think.
But it just boggles the mind of like, why don't you just say there's one world engine and he needs to be it's in Metropolis?
Yeah. Well, no, because then they figured out, if it's gonna be Metropolis, then it's gonna appear like Superman is destroying more of the city than the world engine is.
But he already does that.
Yeah, I know, but it's a bit later on, so maybe the audience has forgot. Right.
But yeah,
I liked the sequence in a bubble of Superman sort of, because the whole idea is that the beam is emulating Krypton atmosphere, so it's kind of like kryptonite again, and he can't use his powers, but he tries really hard, I guess.
He tries really hard and he wins.
Yeah. I like the music. The music is fine, by the way, in the movie. I like the music. Fine, it's fine.
It's an okay Hans Zimmer score.
Yeah, it has the motif, the Superman motif, and it is good. The sequence where he destroys the world engine, it's when that motif starts to really swell up and really, go in. I liked it again in a bubble, and the cinematography is a bit more comprehensive in that sequence.
Right.
And also, I think what they did is that they snuck up a bit of, like, a couple of frames of Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, there is a theory, I guess, that, like, when he's being basically crushed by this laser, that for a few frames they changed his face into look like Christopher Reeve. It's like a little Easter egg.
Nice touch,
Yeah, I kind of like that. That's kind of cute.
It is the moment where he becomes kind of a fully formed Superman,
Yeah, even though it doesn't.
I know.
It doesn't land.
No, it
really
doesn't. I get what they were going for, and it's shot better than most of the movie, so I'll give it credit for that.
Right.
Right, and so basically Zod's plans for terraforming the Earth have been foiled. And yeah, it's kind of a weird after tension where it's like, okay, but the villain doesn't have anything to do now, and now he's just bitter.
Yeah, now he's just mad.
Like, fuck you, Superman.
Granted, that's like him for the entire movie. Yeah. Like, he's just constantly pissed.
He's like, you foiled my plans. Now I'm gonna kill you and kill all of your friends because fuck you, Superman. That's why. It's like, okay.
I do, however, love the idea that so Feora has a bit of a subplot with the general
Christopher Maloney, playing a very Christopher Maloney role.
Yeah, and there's this kind of weird sexual tension between them that is
that was
something.
Weird. Because they both die, right? In a plane crash or something?
No, they get turned into the Phantom Zone.
Right.
So I just
imagine... Are they going to come back
like,
in the SNYDER Cut?
I just imagine the sequel to this movie that we never got, where they come back out of the Phantom Zone, and they're good now because they've worked out their differences. I don't know.
We should make a list of characters with plot points that have not been resolved, who we should keep track if they get resolved in the SNYDER Cut.
But that's like every character. Like Superman doesn't even have like a conclusion to his character.
Yeah, but he at least appears. Okay, we see his story being continued. But I'm thinking like, what about like Feora or whatever? So you have Feora Ui. I'm writing this down. You have Christopher Maloney. I know he has his character has a name, but it's Christopher Maloney.
We have Martian Manhunter.
Yes, good.
Maybe.
I wrote Christopher Manhunter. Martian Manhunter.
Who else do we got?
What about Scientist Man? Because he's also a character from the comics. Played by Richard Schiff, Dr. M.L. Hamilton.
None of these people are going to show up in the SNYDER Cut.
No, not at all. But we're going to make a point of noting that they didn't resolve these arcs by the end of Zack Snyder's tenure, so to speak.
Right.
Do you think Perry
So-
White is going to show up in the Snyder Cut? We have Fiora Uwe, we have Christopher Maloney, we have Martian Manhunter, we have Emil Hamilton, and Perry White.
Right.
So we'll see if any of these people have any sort of arc or
Yeah.
conclusion to their story. Because I get that a lot of these people were introduced in this movie with the idea that they were going to be reoccurring.
Right.
And outside of Perry White, I guess Martian Manhunter is in Batman v Superman. He's not Martian Manhunter.
He's
the general.
briefly there.
He's briefly in Batman v Superman, but
Right.
you know, Christopher Maloney is not anywhere. Fiora Uwe is not in anything else. Emil Hamilton is not in anything else. So
Zod is there as
the
a
corpse. Yeah, but at least we can conclude that his character arc is finished by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
You know, he, spoiler alert, dies.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this movie, which is the 9/11 that Superman does.
The 9/11 times 1,000.
Pretty much. So in this final sort of personal battle between Zod and Superman that has no stakes, they fight in Metropolis,
Right.
destroying the whole fucking city, just revolution happening.
Right.
Though somebody showed Zack Snyder like a rendering of a building falling in Blender or Maya, and he was like,
Yeah.
oh, "This is the future. I want this, but times 1,000."
Somebody actually asked him after the movie came out of like, how many people died?
Oh yeah, it was a
Or-
Kevin Smith interview, right?
Yeah. How many people died in that thing? And he goes, about 5,000. And it's like, no fucking
No.
way 5,000 people died in this
Also,
shit.
5,000. Even if it was 5,000, that's 5,000 people dead, man.
Yeah. But when you see the movie, it's like, no fucking way did only 5,000 people
thousands.
get away with that. Is a fucking miracle if that happened.
And again, you mentioned that we see Superman save people in the Smallville sequence. We see
Right.
none of that shit here.
No, he's just punching. He's not even trying to get Zod away
No, he's
from
just punching
like,
people from
Metropolis.
buildings.
He's just punching him through buildings. He like takes a Kryptonian, like skirts him over a building, like holds him down whilst he's like flying through the building. This is also a thing I wanted to get back to, which is the idea of Superman as a character in this movie, because he basically ruins Zod's plan of like rebuilding Krypton in another way by destroying the sort of embryos on the Fortress of Solitude
Right.
ship. He basically does it by going, Krypton had its chance, and then he like lasers it and is like, you just committed genocide.
Zod is like,
Clark.
no!
It's like, oh my god,
It's-
you just genocided your own race.
Again,
basically.
And I understand that they were trying to do their own thing, the people who
Right.
made this movie. But, you know, you still go into a Superman movie with some expectations of what Superman is. And from what I know, again, I'm not the biggest fan of the character, and I don't think that many people are really. But, you know, the idea more is that Superman is an extremely overpowered character. He gets mediated by the fact that he tries to save as many people as possible.
Right.
And that, you know, that hinders his ability to be the best fighter in the world or whatever.
Like that scene where he commits genocide.
Yeah.
Is also kind of weird when we look at when he kills Zod. Spoiler, he kills Zod.
But a lot of it is premeditated because
Right.
we see all these acts. Again,
Yeah,
because Clark
but-
has such a narrow view of the world, he doesn't have any reference point for what's right and what's wrong.
True,
really.
But I was more thinking of like the moment right after he snaps his neck, where he like screams and like is in agony or whatever. And I think it was Zack Snyder, it might have been David S. Goya, talk about that moment as like he finally understands that he is the last Kryptonian. And it's like, yeah, because he fucking just genocided all the rest of them.
Yeah, he killed all of them.
So it's like, why is he crying over Zod? Like, he should be dancing on his fucking corpse.
Woo! Party!
Takes the head as a trophy into his ruined Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, no, it's again tone deaf, completely tone deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they make him feel very terrifying in this movie by his actions.
Yeah,
by how
and
brazenly he takes these actions. It's like you shouldn't you shouldn't do genocide this lightly, Superman.
yeah, and we will get to that when we talk about Batman v Superman. But there's also scenes in that where they sort of emphasize that again, of like this Superman is kind of scary. Like it's like it kind of reminds me of the the Injustice series,
Right.
which is a video game series and a like spin-off comic. It's like an alternate universe where basically Superman kills the Joker.
Yeah, he goes
And
bad.
he goes bad. He has this one bad day because the Joker kills Lois Lane. It's kind of like that. It's like he's constantly teetering on that one bad day idea, which totally goes against the idea of Superman.
Right. Also, the fight sequence in Metropolis, I don't know, is so bad.
It's so like deafening. It just becomes too much at a point.
Also, some of the CGI and in general in this movie is quite bad.
Yeah, but then there are other times where it's like for instance, I didn't know that the suit that Zod wears, the like armor, was CG.
Yeah, that is CG. Yeah,
which
it looks good.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, well, when you use a mocap suit and trackers, and you can track anything, so it looks.
Which looks very funny when you then see on-set footage of Michael Shannon being, menacing General Zod.
Yeah, in a sock
onesie.
In a sock onesie.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and some of the stuff that they shot for this fight sequence in Metropolis is practical. I particularly remember him Superman dragging Zod's head on a building. That was practical.
Right.
Not practical in real, like they shot it on a green screen, but it was Henry Cavill pushing Zod's head on a green cloth.
Magic of movies.
The magic of movies, folks. But one CG shot I thought was atrocious, which is when Zod, like when they're flying through the air and Zod picks Superman by the cape and rotates him.
Oh, yeah.
And it zooms into Zod's eye and it's a CG model, obviously.
Yeah, it looks really bad.
And I'm like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But that whole sequence feels out of place. It's even, and we talked about the color correction. It even looks color corrected differently than everything else.
Yeah.
It's more bluish.
I wonder if it's a final add-on or something.
It's like, we need more action, Zach.
Yeah, we need. How did they get from here to here? I don't know. Make like he froze him. I don't know. Grabs his cape. He froze him.
Right. So they fight for what feels like an hour, and
I mean, it almost is. Like that final sequence is like 40 minutes, and it's like, oh my god.
And they finally land in a train station or something. And
yeah, it's like Grand Central Station, but Metropolis.
Yeah,
I assume
they shot it on location. So
right.
So they struggle, and at some point, Zod gives Superman an ultimatum, which is, if you want me to stop, you're gonna have to kill me, because I'm never gonna stop. And he starts pointing his laser eyes at a couple and their kids who are like cornered awkwardly, but not really in a corner of the station, and the beams are slowly moving towards him. Which
he's holding his head, and
Superman is like holding him in like a UFC style chokehold. He has his hand on his neck and he's holding him, and basically Superman snaps Zod's neck, kills him, right? And you see the life go out of his eyes.
Yeah, you see like the laser power down, and it's literally just the life going from his eyes. Which, I don't know, that was kind of clever in its own way.
And Superman yells because he's distraught with this one death in particular for some reason. And it cuts to him on a bicycle getting employed at a Daily Planet.
And it has like the best line in the entire movie,
which is Lois says, right?
Yeah, it's so he basically gives like a monologue of like, okay, where like I think he's talking to his mom,
right? Yes, I think
like I found a job that basically makes it possible for me to be in dangerous situations without people asking questions.
Right, somebody they wouldn't expect to be Superman.
And
right.
It's a nice little sequence where they constantly like hide parts of him. Like
right.
we see him like from over the shoulder on his bike,
Right.
And we see him put on the glasses in the elevator, but we don't see his face. It's a nice little sequence, and then he gets introduced as like Clark Kent, our new reporter, whatever. And then Lois goes, "Welcome to the planet," because it's the Daily Planet, and it's like, okay, that's kind of cute. This is a movie that needed a proper sequel. Not Batman v Superman. I don't count that as a proper sequel to this movie, and we will get to why in the next one. But I feel like this needed like a Man of Steel 2 before we went into Batman v Superman, to sort of, and then you put the neck snap at the end of that movie.
All right, and have Zod be a continuous villain.
Yeah, or like he gets put in the Phantom Zone, and then I don't know, Lex Luthor comes in and he gets a Phantom Drive, and he's puts Zod out, and boom, you got your final action sequence. I don't know.
Or, yeah, because you can drive home the idea of Superman doing everything he can to not kill Zod.
Yeah.
And develop his sense of protecting people more, because we don't see that in the movie at all.
Right.
And you see that Zod keeps destroying, and killing people and stuff, and then, and maybe do it in a more subtle way where you don't see a person snap another person's neck, because the visual is very striking, as is how Zack Snyder does things.
Right.
You could have done a thing where you just have imagine if you had a sequence where like they're in the middle of nowhere in the forest and they're fighting forever, and Superman just, it's like something in his facial expression changes and he knows that this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And you just cut to the aftermath.
Oh yeah, like Lois arrives and then you just see Zod lying there dead.
Yeah. And Superman just flies slowly, silently, Maybe a little
They
tear.
just look at each other and he just flies away.
Yeah, maybe cries a bit. I don't know.
No, he doesn't cry.
He doesn't cry. He doesn't secrete water out of his orifices. He doesn't pee.
What is his tears actually made of then?
I don't know.
But yeah, like the thing is with basically Superman throughout all of these movies is that he never gets to be Superman. Right.
Well, I mean, this is a very complicated discussion, which I give some credit. I don't want to be a huge asshole like everybody and dismiss this entirely.
No.
The movie does ask some questions, not in a very particular, like it stumbles a lot to get there, but it asks some questions like, well, what does it even mean to be Superman?
Right.
Like people have this notion, and I remember hearing a lot of stuff like this when the movie came out, and people were like, this is not what Superman is, and I'm like, what the fuck is Superman? It's a person with superpowers. You know what I mean?
And I will agree with you that this movie initiates that conversation, but I never felt like that conversation was ever finished.
No, it wasn't. It was not.
And that's my big problem, is that I feel like you could have an entire sequel where it's like, okay, now he's been introduced, he is Superman to the world. What does it then mean for him to be Superman? Like, who does he save? How does he save? Like, we've already established this thing with the military. Like, the Superman name is even just a code name that the military gives him.
Right.
They allow him to work independently because he keeps destroying their drones.
Right. Which I kind of like that. Like, oh, I'm not part of the military just because I work with you. I'm my own person. I make my own decisions. I like that idea.
And you could build that up a little bit in like a continuation where you actually get to, like, what if Superman does something like saves a group of people and the military was like, we wouldn't have saved those people. Like,
But do you think, because we're talking about this movie, do you think by itself, do you think this works as an introduction to Superman?
Yes and no.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Because I think if you know enough about Superman, which, let's be fair, a lot of people do, I think this movie's fine.
I think so too.
But if you showed this to a person who's never been told what a Superman is, it makes no fucking sense. Because we don't get that sense of a character developed for Superman, so that when he does kill Zod at the end, he will have this reaction and we will understand him as a character. And they had some ideas about like the progression of this movie and, oh, he's going to kill Zod at the end. It's going to be this insane thing, and then they forgot to think about like, but who is our version of Superman? Because he's not the Christopher Reeve version of Superman. Like, he would never impale somebody's truck. And that's also why I feel like this movie, we will get to it with the other movies, but this is the quote unquote easiest to fix.
Yeah, I think it's the best one that we're going to talk about out of all of them. Just some quick behind the scenes notes. David S. Goyer comes across as a total nut job in the behind the scenes footage. He's obsessed with Christ and the Old, the New Testament.
Right.
They are obsessed with the Death of Superman comic. Even from Man of Steel, they're only talking in the behind the scenes about the Death of Superman comic.
Right.
Which is foreshadowing events to come.
Yeah.
David S. Goyer said, I quote, I wrote this down, "The reveal of the Superman suit, when they revealed it like in a press kit or something before the movie, not in the movie, like, promotional stills.
Right.
I think it's the one where he's near the bank vault.
Yeah, I remember that photo being revealed.
The reveal of the Superman photo was trending higher than the debt crisis. Fuck you. How's that? How can you say that? Anyway, there's a funny little behind the scenes thing where Henry Cavill and Russell Crowe actually met years earlier when Henry Cavill was in boarding school. Russell Crowe visited this boarding school for whatever reason, and he gave Henry Cavill a signed photo from Gladiator. And he told him the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I wrote down, what a prick.
Why do I imagine he still has that?
I probably does. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I think, Russell Crowe was being kind of a jerk, but I don't think Henry Cavill realizes that, which is funny to me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Henry Cavill, in the behind the scenes, calls the younger versions of his character, the flashback ones, the Young Clarks, which is a very good name for a band.
Yep, I like that.
The Young Clarks. Russell Crowe thinks this movie could inspire young people to care about global warming.
Because of the Krypton scene?
Yeah. Like Krypton destroying itself and pledging their natural, like plundering their natural resources. He thinks that young people will be inspired, whatever.
No Avatar, but it's trying.
This is the only Zack Snyder DC movie with one version.
Oh yeah, because there's a director's cut of Batman v Superman as well.
Yeah, there's an ultimate cut or whatever. There's gonna be a second version of Justice League.
Right.
And it's not directed by him there, but there's alternate versions of Suicide Squad as well.
Right. But then there's like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and stuff that doesn't have different versions.
But again, the only Zack Snyder movie with one version. And even if you count Watchmen, it's also a DC movie, I guess.
Oh yeah, that one also has an extended
cut. It has like 3 cuts. So
yeah, right. I've only seen one of them.
So there you go. This is as good as it's gonna get. So, all right. Well, that's about it for my notes. My general impression of the movie is that it is bad. But I think that there's stuff about enough talented people worked on it that I want to give it credit where credit is due. I think some sequences are good.
Right.
Some sequences are not. I think it had a world of potential, even considering all the mistakes that they did. Yeah. I think that they really shot themselves in the foot with the last sequence with the destruction of Metropolis. Because then,
that's really tone deaf.
If you remember, in the years following the movie, everything that was talked about this movie was regarding that sequence. Like, how are they going to address it in the sequels? And then basically everything after that in terms of how the plot progression of the series was around that sequence.
Right. Which, now we'll talk about when we get to BVS. What I think about that.
But again, I'm thinking they shouldn't have done it in the first place, because then maybe we could have had the story move in actual meaningful ways instead of a bunch of political nonsense jargon that didn't go anywhere.
We will get to it.
We'll get to it. But if I were to rate it, Daniel, which I know we never did on this show.
No, we've actually never rated a movie on
I will give it a 5 to a 6 out of 10.
Oh, that's way more generous than I am.
All right. What would you give it?
4.
Fair enough.
And it's mainly due to, I think the production design for the most part is really neat. I like the cast. And I think the music works sometimes. But everything from the Krypton sequence onwards is a mess.
All right. Well, I'm more generous than you. So I'm better. Anyway, so that's about it for Man of Steel. It's a train wreck. But it's the best it's the best it's gonna get, Daniel, because next time we're gonna do one of these. We're not gonna do this next week, but the next time we do the road to the Snyder Cut, we're gonna be doing the 2016 movie Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, one of the stupidest titles I've ever heard in my life. All right, well that does it for this episode. Next week we might do something special.
We might.
Tune in to find out.
Hey.
All right. Well, salutations and happy trails to you, I guess.